Here's the reading of pages 135 to 136. In the valleys of two Chinese rivers. We've seen ancient civilizations rise along the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Sumer, the Nile River in Egypt, and the Indus River in the Indian subcontinent. Now we're going to travel farther east to China, where yet another ancient civilization was born. Take a look at the modern-day country of China on a map or globe. You may already know that China is the most populous country in the world. About 1.3 billion people live there. But did you know that China is also the world's oldest living civilization? True. Civilization in China began a little later than in Sumer, Egypt, and India. But the civilizations that built Sumer's ziggurats, Egypt's pyramids, and ancient India's citadels or fortresses all came to an end. China is a different story. People in China today can trace their writing, history, art, and philosophy further back in time than people in any other modern nation. Civilization took root more than 3,000 years ago, and it has been evolving non-stop ever since. That's why historians call it the world's oldest living civilization. Two cradles of civilization, the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. Although civilizations in China began a little later than in Sumer, Egypt, and India, as far as we know, it began without contact with those three places. People in ancient China were cut off from the rest of the world by geographic features. To the north stretched the Gobi, a vast desert. In the west rose the jagged Himalaya and other mountainous lands. To the south and east lay the South China Sea, the East China Sea, and the Yellow Sea. These barriers would keep the people of China somewhat isolated for thousands of years. So on the map, locate the Gobi Desert, the Himalaya Mountains, the Yellow Sea, the East China Sea, and the South China Sea. By now, you won't be surprised to learn that Chinese civilization got its start near a river, near two major rivers, in fact. The first was the Yellow River, which begins in the western highlands of China, flows north, makes an abrupt hairpin turn to the south, and then continues to the sea. So here's the Yellow River. There's that hairpin turn. Okay, and then it goes out into the sea. The yellow is actually mud colored. So why is it called yellow? Because it leaves a yellowish soil behind when the river's floodwaters recede. This soil is as fine as flour and good for growing millet, a kind of grain the Chinese people make into cereal. Farther south, the Yangtze River gave a second home to Chinese civilization. The climate there is warmer than in the north, the land green and lush. People discovered it was the perfect place to grow rice. Every spring, melting snow from the mountains turned to water and fattened the Yangtze River and its many tributaries. Farmers leveled land to make fields in the many well-watered valleys. The warm southern climate made possible 2 growing seasons every year, sometimes even 3. So it wasn't long before the busy Chinese farmers had a surplus of food on their hands. With that surplus, people were free to do other jobs besides farming, weaving baskets, making cloth, or fashioning pots to store grain. They began building simple wooden homes along the rivers and fields. Before long, villages and then cities were sprouting up. Civilization was beginning to bloom in ancient China. And on the map on page 135, locate the Yellow River and the Yangtze River. And then let's take a look at this little, so here's the Yellow River with the yellow soil, and then here is the Yangtze River. So the Henghe and Changjing. The Yellow River and Yangtze River are also known by other names. The Yellow River is called the Huanghu. Huang means yellow. The Yangtze is sometimes called Changjing, which means long river. Changjing is a very appropriate name for this river, which is the third longest river in the world. All right, and that is the end of the reading of pages 135 and 136.